Hey, what's up? This is Mr. Ippolito, and today we are going to talk about the powers of the federal government, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and the necessary and proper clause, also called the elastic clause. Let's go ahead and jump in. The Constitution, specifically in Article 1, which is all about the legislative branch, right? And then more specifically, Article 1, Section 8 deals with the powers of Congress and the powers of the federal government. What does the federal government have the power to do? The founders, the framers of the Constitution, they were very specific. And so they laid out the powers of the federal government right here in Article 1, Section 8. So this first clause here talks about Congress's ability to basically to charge taxes, right? And that taxes shall be uniform throughout the United States, meaning if you're going to charge people in Maryland federal taxes, then they need to be equal to the federal taxes of Massachusetts or Connecticut or Rhode Island or any other state in the United States. So this first clause is the power to tax. Next is the power to borrow money. The United States needs to be able to borrow money from time to time, and goodness knows we've gotten really good at borrowing money. We have a rather large federal debt right now. To regulate commerce with foreign nations, so this is regulating trade with other countries among the several states. So this is interstate commerce, trade across state lines, and then with the Indian tribes. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization. So Congress can set rules about the way people become United States citizens. That is naturalizations. And bankruptcy as well. So trying to give people a fresh start if they fall into so much debt that they can't get out of all of it. That's bankruptcy law. To coin money. Right, so to create a national currency and to fix the standard of weights and measures. We've talked about weights and measures, right? So whether it's the measure of how many ounces are in a pound, how many feet are in a mile, the measure of time. We've talked about the atomic clock in Boulder, Colorado, the measure of weather, right? So this is where we get the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They're the reasons why we have a weather forecast on our phones each day or on TV, is because of Congress creating a law giving the federal government the power to standardize weights and measures. To provide for the punishment of counterfeit, so this is counterfeit money, right? To provide laws to punish that. To establish post offices, we've talked about that already. To promote the progress of science and useful arts. So this right here, science and useful arts, that is patents, that is trademarks and copyrights. The federal government can make laws to protect your intellectual property. So if you invent some amazing invention, or if you write a great song, or you write a novel or a poem or whatever, it is protected by either copyright, trademark, or patent. So that's what that is right here. Tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court, those are just other courts, other federal courts that are underneath the Supreme Court. To define and punish piracy and felonies on the high seas. To declare war. So that is Congress's power to declare war, which Congress has taken advantage of a few times in our nation's history. Raise and support armies, provide a navy. Again, that is all for the defense of our country. Again, rules for the government and regulation of land and naval forces. That's also Army and Navy right there. Militia. So you'll notice that there are two different clauses here that are basically our response to Shays' Rebellion, right? So in other words, we want to make sure that no insurrections ever happen again. And so we're going to develop a militia system so that does not happen. And it will be regulated by the government of the United States and the individual states as well to suppress insurrections and repel invasions. So those are those two clauses there. This next one is, this clause 17 here is all about creating a federal district, right? This federal district to become the seat of the government of the United States. Spoiler alert, this is going to become Washington, D.C. So this clause right here is just all about the creation of the city of Washington, D.C. because it didn't exist before the Constitution. It's going to be the world's first capital city created for the purpose of becoming a capital. So that's clause 17. And then finally, clause 18 is to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. So basically what that means is if it wasn't specifically mentioned somewhere else in Article 1, Section 8, then Congress has the ability to make laws that account for new things that maybe we haven't thought of yet that can help support any one of these goals. For example, Alexander Hamilton, there he is right there. He was our first Secretary of the Treasury for the United States. He said we need a national bank. And opponents of Alexander Hamilton, and there were many because he made a lot of opponents and enemies during his political life, said, you know what? Nowhere in here does it say anything about the creation of a national bank. And Alexander Hamilton scrolled down. Well, he probably didn't scroll. Well, although it literally was a scroll. Sort of. Parchment. Anyway, Alexander Hamilton was able to point to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, the necessary and proper clause, and say, you know what, listen, we're creating a national bank because it is necessary and proper for the functioning of our government. Because if you take a look right up here at Clause 1, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes. If we're going to collect taxes, where are we going to put that money? We got to put that money in a bank. So we got to create a national bank. It is necessary and proper to create this bank in order to support one of the other goals of the Constitution, right? So this is the necessary and proper clause is also called the elastic clause because we're kind of stretching the Constitution a little bit to sort of be like, okay, well, yeah, we can kind of find that in there. So this is the first example of that kind of being what's called the elastic clause. Another example, Hoover Dam right here. Hoover Dam was built in the 1930s for two reasons. Number one, for water storage and also for hydroelectric power. Now, again, you look back in the Constitution, nowhere does it say that Congress shall create dams for the purpose of hydroelectric power and for water storage. But we could look up here for the general welfare of the United States. Is it in the interest of the general welfare of the United States to have water, especially in times of drought? Yes. Is it good for us to have electricity, which we have come to rely on? Yes. Okay, well, general welfare, all right, Hoover Dam, that can be considered one of the things that is necessary and proper. Again, we're stretching the original meaning of the Constitution a little bit to account for things. The framers were probably not thinking of electricity, well, except for Benjamin Franklin, at the time they were writing the Constitution. Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. This was controversial in 2009 and 2010, also known as Obamacare. Is healthcare, giving affordable healthcare access to all Americans, is that anywhere in the Constitution? No. But again, you take a look at the general welfare of the United States, and we're stretching the Constitution a little bit more to allow for healthcare, and so it has gone to the Supreme Court because people have challenged it, saying the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court, every single time it's gone to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has ruled that that the Affordable Care Act can stand and that it is constitutional and that it is covered under the taxation power and the general welfare clause. Okay, and then finally, one more thing. We'll talk about another example of something that the framers never really conceived of was airport security. This is the Transportation Security Administration. After 9/11, the federal government federalized all airport security. Airport security was this kind of mix of public and private security prior to 9/11, but after September 11, 2001, the federal government stepped in and said, we are going to create national standards for airport security. Again, nowhere in the Constitution, nowhere in Article 1, Section 8 does it say anything about airports, but because it is the general welfare of the United States that we have safe airplanes to fly on, and air travel now has become part of our life and has become, part of the carrying out of many of the things that we do in our country. And so therefore, the TSA and airport security also falls under that elastic clause, the necessary and proper clause right there. All right. Well, that is Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, the necessary and proper clause, and a few examples of how we've stretched the Constitution over the years to account for things that the framers really never even could conceive of in 1787. Hope that helps, and I hope you have a great day. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.